Next News, breaking news.
Rose Lake Capital pulled in up to $1 million, but Ilhan Omar wants you to believe her husband personally made $200 for the year. $200. Not a typo, not satire. And the bankrupt wine outfit in the middle of this circus carried the name The Devil's Lie, which sounds less like a business and more like a confession. Well, President Trump launches a national war on fraud. One of the left's most protected untouchables just filed a financial story so absurd it insults every taxpayer in this country. Then a reporter pressed Omar and she snapped. Do I look concerned? Well, you should be. You see, this matters because fraud is not a game for cable chatter or Capitol Hill spin doctors. Fraud is your paycheck. Fraud is Medicare money ripped away from seniors. Fraud is Medicaid cash stolen from families who already stretch every dollar. Right now, the Trump administration is finally treating it like the theft that it is. Todd Blanche just announced charges against 455 defendants across 45 states and territories, tied to more than $6.5 billion in false claims. Kash Patel drove the point home. Fraud is no longer being tolerated. President Trump put J.D. Vance in charge of the war on fraud for a reason. He wants the looters cornered. So when Ilhan Omar, a congresswoman from a state hammered by fraud, waves off basic questions and blames an accountant for a money trail that jumped to millions, cratered to zero, now magically lands between $200 and $1,000, she's not just dodging embarrassment. Ilhan Omar is spitting in the face of every American who played by the rules while politically connected Democrats treated disclosure laws like a joke. You see, Rose Lake says up to $1 million in revenue, while Omar's Circle pushes a $200 fairy tale. That's why I pay attention to what actually works. After trying hundreds of supplements, only C60 Evo hit like this. Brain fog gone. Joint pain virtually eliminated. More energy, clearer thinking. My wife's skin looks 10 years younger and my energy feels 20 years younger as well. C60 Evo is a Nobel Prize winning molecule, not just another antioxidant. The Paris study, it showed lab animals live 90% longer, the longest life extension in history, and it works at the cellular level where aging actually happens. It's 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. They've been making this since 1991 in a Houston lab. Get exclusive savings at c60evo.com/NNN. Use code NNN at checkout. Results matter and excuses don't. Feel young again. Now here's the detail that turns this from sleazy to ridiculous. The bankrupt wine company tied to Tim Mynett was called The Devil's Lie. You can't invent that. And after scrutiny hit, the story didn't tighten up, it blew apart. Assets once listed as worth up to $30 million got wiped down to zero. Then Omar filed a new disclosure, claiming her husband earned as little as $200 in 2025. I'm going to show you the receipts right here on this screen because when you see the timeline side by side, the whole scammy pattern hits at once. Omar's new claim that her husband made next to nothing from companies is contradicted by his own accountants. Omar claims her husband made between $200 and $1,000 in all of 2025 in a new filing. So she says her husband made next to nothing. Now Comer steps in and says the story falls apart fast, and he's raising the question of whether this was incompetence or just a straight-up lie. Omar blamed her accountant for a multi-million-dollar reporting error on her financial disclosure. Either her accountant went to the Quality Leering Center or she lied about it.
Well, the walls may be closing in on Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. She faces allegations of steering taxpayer money toward fraudulent schemes in her state. Boy, that state's a mess. Great people, though. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer detailing the next steps of the investigation.
I do think Ilhan Omar is in a lot of trouble. She's got that big question mark on how her net worth jumped up to, at least $6 million and then went back down to zero over a 1 year period.
So are you saying that Ilhan Omar the congresswoman from Minnesota, that she was getting federal money and feeding it into these corrupt Somali networks, her cronies?
I think one of the projects she requested was proved to be a fraudulent Somali scheme.
Now, we have reached out to Congresswoman Omar's team for comment. We've yet to hear back. We'll let you know if that changes. Meanwhile, a former state employee who was placed on administrative leave is now accusing the Walz administration of ignoring fraud and intimidating whistleblowers. Watch this.
The smear campaign starts where you are told that you are racist, and then your job duties are lessened and lessened until you basically have no job duties. There is just a continuous effort to stifle you, to shut you up. And it is impossible to overcome. So to say that leadership was not aware or the governor was not aware I can tell you that is absolutely false.
So Comer says the numbers don't add up. Walls are closing in. Next, the filings get uglier. Assets once listed as high as $30 million suddenly dropped to zero, while a firm still pulls in up to $1 million. In 2024, Omar's husband, Tim Mynett, reported assets worth $30 million from his venture capital firm and wine empire. After a congressional investigation was launched into her finances, she filed an amended disclosure claiming it was all an accounting error and the business were worth zero. Now her 2025 disclosure shows Mynett earned as little as $200 for the entire year from a wine company called The Devil's Lie. It's since gone bankrupt. His venture capital firm, Rose Lake, still generated $1 million in revenue, but somehow he personally made $200. The one who built her career screaming about the wealthy hiding their money just filed the most suspicious financial disclosure in congressional history. The devil's lie indeed. So that's the core problem. Big money on paper, almost no personal income claimed, and now even President Trump is weighing in, blasting Omar as Democrats keep treating her like rising star material. Here's President Trump in the Oval Office.
A very smart guy, did a great job. You know, when I look at the Democrats, I call them the Democrats. They're dumb, the Democrats. When I watched that, where one of them thought it was World War XI. She said World War XI. She read World War II. You know about that, right? This is one of their potential leaders, Ilhan Omar, who married her brother to get into the country, by the way, illegally. But when I watch AOC, have no idea on a simple question, what happened when she was over in Switzerland, which she probably never went there before, but she was. And then I watch somebody like JD or Marco. I said, what a difference. What a difference. What a difference a brain makes. Mr. President.
So Trump's point is simple. This is who the left keeps putting out front. And when Omar finally gets pressed on fraud and deportation questions, her answer isn't denial, it's total contempt.
So when Republicans have repeatedly stated that you committed immigration fraud, are you at all worried about a formal investigation that could perhaps lead to your deportation?
Well, you're one of those people.
I don't know what that means, but are you at all concerned?
Do I look concerned?
I guess not.
Okay.
All right. What about the Minnesota fraud hearing? You didn't show up for that. Do you think you should have?
Why should I have?
Well, it happened in your state. Don't you want to defend your position?
There were people from my state that were there.
Okay, but why not you? I mean, there's allegations that you're complicit in the fraud. Wouldn't you want to show up?
Why would there be an allegation that I'm complicit? How would I be complicit?
Well, what about Tim
Do
Walz?
you just ask stupid questions? Is this your thing?
I'm curious to get your thoughts.
No,
I mean, there's a lot of controversy around the issue. $9 billion in fraud in the state of Minnesota.
$9 billion?
You don't think so?
Really?
Yeah, and counting. Probably more, honestly. You think that's fake news or what?
That is more than half of the resources that are allocated.
Okay.
So you genuinely, your brain has told you that it is possible for half of the resources.
I'm just going off of what
for our public service to half disappear is what you're saying.
Countless Minnesota state representatives, whistleblowers have come
listen
forward.
To yourself, though.
I'm
just
trying.
think about that for a second.
Maybe if you showed up at the hearing, you would know that whistleblowers are being retaliated against for exposing the fraud. Why is that? Why are they being tracked and traced?
Think about what you're asking. Who is tracing whistleblowers?
Minnesota state officials, Tim Walz, anyone who dares to speak out against the government.
Tim Walz is doing something to whistleblowers?
Yeah, why is Tim Walz stepping down if he's, innocent? Why isn't he running for re-election?
Because he's had 8 years to serve as our great governor.
He was going to be vice president of the United States if Kamala won.
Yes, and he would have been an excellent vice president.
But now he's stepping
much
down.
better than the person we have right now.
And now he's stepping down as governor. Any comment on that? You don't think he's maybe complicit?
He is focusing on trying to make sure our state remains great. All right, have a nice day.
Thank you, you too.
Please read.
Allison Steinberg from Lindell TV for the win there. You just saw Omar melt down when Allison asked direct questions. Next, we shift to another bizarre moment from her orbit, the incident where someone sprayed her at a town hall. The story just seemed to vanish overnight. Whatever happened to the guy that sprayed Ilhan Omar? Curious. The story just faded. It's almost like it was staged. Remember this?
Must resign or face impeachment. I don't know.
Oh my God. Oh my God, he sprayed something on her.
I need a napkin to know nothing.
So the town hall chaos raised plenty of questions that never got answered. Meanwhile, the White House Fraud Task Force is signaling something very different. Now fraudsters are on notice. Good night, fraudsters. Tomorrow's wake-up call, courtesy of the White House Fraud Task Force. From the Mean Post to Real Action, the crackdown is already hitting. DOJ says 455 defendants across 45 states and territories charged in a massive $6.5 billion healthcare fraud sweep. Todd
we
Blanche.
are announcing federal and state charges, all of which were charged or unsealed at some point over the past 2 weeks, the past 14 days. Coordinated nationwide action. Since June 8th, we've charged 455 defendants across 56, like I said a minute ago, U.S. attorneys' offices, and 45 U.S. states and territories. As alleged in the various indictments, these individuals participated in healthcare fraud schemes involving over $6.5 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare programs. The team around me will get into more specifics, but here are a few points that stand out. In one indictment, we're bringing charges against a corporate executive in Arizona in connection to over a $1 billion fraud involving unnecessary wound grafts. This alleged scheme costs Medicare over $1 million per patient. In total, our indictment charges 11 defendants for over $2 billion in fraudulent claims in connection to alleged wound care schemes. The indictment also alleges that these individuals then used the taxpayer money to bankroll multi-million-dollar homes, luxury vehicles like a $135,000 Maserati, jewelry like an $865,000 Bulgari necklace, and to top it all off, to fund the construction of a $4.6 million hotel at a beach resort in the Philippines. We're taking back the money, the luxury cars, the jewelry, and these alleged fraudsters will face justice. The coordinated actions of the past 2 weeks have resulted in over $182 million in cash and other assets seized, making clear our healthcare fraud enforcement efforts generate a significant return on investment for our taxpayers.
So those are real numbers and real arrests, not the usual swamp press release. Leader, next FBI Director Kash Patel spells out what Trump-era leadership on the fraud actually looks like.
America, you should take a look. You should take a look at what leadership from the White House and the President Trump's prioritization to go after and combat fraud looks like. America should take a look at the Vice President's task force and the initiative by the Justice Department here under AG Todd Blanche and AAG Colin McDonald. Fraud is no longer being tolerated, it is not being put up with, and you've seen the staggering numbers that in just the last 2 weeks, that's all we're here to talk about today, is just the last 2 weeks of fraud, of perpetrators and criminals who have been arrested and apprehended from around the world, totaling over $6 and $7 billion in fraud, in money stolen from the American people, our precious taxpayer dollars that are supposed to service our seniors and our kids were being stolen outright by individuals who thought they could get away with it. But thanks to the Trump administration and the Vice President's task force and the White House task force and the Department of Justice's courageous prosecutors, we have now been able to charge a record number of individuals.
So Kash Patel says the message is clear. Fraud is no longer being tolerated. President Trump taking it a step further, naming the man leading the war on fraud, Vice President J.D. Vance.
To stop the massive theft of taxpayer dollars, including millions of illegals, we've launched the war on fraud led by our great Vice President J.D. Vance. He's doing a great job. Doing a great job. Smart guy.
Doing a great job. So the peak of the story is not Ilhan Omar's attitude, it's the number. Up to $30 million and then zero. Then $200 to $1,000. And in the middle of that mess sits Rose Lake Capital, still generating up to $1 million in revenue, while Tim Mynett supposedly scraped together lunch money. Ilhan Omar did not get cornered by a trick question. Ilhan Omar got cornered by arithmetic. Then she barked at a reporter, "Did you just ask a stupid question?" No, Congresswoman. Americans ask the questions you and your protectors in the press spent years trying to smother. And James Comer has it exactly right. Either the accountant learned the math at the Quality Leering Center, or Ilhan Omar lied. Pick one. And then subpoena the records. See, President Trump put grown-ups back in charge. And this is exactly what that looks like when the cameras are rolling and the protected class starts sweating. J.D. Vance leads a real war on fraud. Kash Patel backs it with muscle. Todd Blanche backs it with indictments. Good. Keep going. If the Trump administration can hammer 455 defendants across 45 states and territories over $6.5 billion in false claims, then Washington can stop treating Ilhan Omar like left-wing royalty and start treating her like every other person who files numbers with the federal government. No immunity, no magic accountant, no escape hatch labeled amended disclosure. And if legacy media wants to keep babysitting Omar while she snarls at voters and stonewalls questions, let them expose themselves too. And drop your take below after you watch that meltdown again. And share this with somebody who still thinks the ruling class plays by the rules. And keep your eyes on Minnesota. The cleanup started. Now it's time to finish it. And I want to make sure you get the news that you depend on. I've seen your comments. I've seen you guys say, hey, I don't get notifications anymore. And that's why I set up this special number just for you. Thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. I do not want you to be left out. I want to make sure you are on the inside track with Next News. And you get the notifications direct from me to your phone once a night. And make sure you're celebrating all the wins with us here at Next News. America 250 is here. Go to the merch shelf below this video or go to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this. Share this now.